Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Jagannath, Jaya Baladeva, Subhadramani, Jaya Sudarshana, Jaya Nitai Chaitanya, Jaya Nitai Chaitanya, Nitai Chaitanya, Jaya Nitai Chaitanya, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jai Jai Prabhupada, Jai Jai Gurudev, 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 Jai Jai Gurudev, Nitai Gaur Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaur Haribo. Shri Radha की जय, पंतत्व भगवान की जय, श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, समवेत गौर भक्तवृंद की जय. Hare Krishna, devotees, Revati Nandan Prabhu, Vijay Sri, Umesh Prabhu, Shanti Govinda Prabhu, and one more, I don't know whoever is there on 374-981-9054. So good to have you all for this morning rendition of Srimad Bhagavatam. Long time. So a very interesting verse today, interesting and little has to be taken up very nicely. So we'll request for your blessings that we can at least take this up in a proper consciousness, and it helps us understand Srimad Bhagavatam, which is Amala Purana, in a right conscience and right consciousness also. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Shutyam Naram Jaiva Niratama Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudire Nastra Prayeshu Bhutreshu Nityam Bhagavati Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishchiti Mukham Kavati Vachalam Pundagangayati Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Sri Guru Dinataryam Paramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanya Ishwaram. So we are actually reading from Canto 3, and we are in the chapter 14. It's Canto 3, chapter 4. Canto 3 is on the status quo, and chapter 14 is on pregnancy of Diti in the evening. Quite an interesting chapter. 29, we are supposed to read Sloka 29 and Sloka 30. So let's just read the slokas and the translation, and then we shall think of discussing on this. Brahmadayo yat kritasetupala yat karanam vishwamidam cha maya ajñakari yasya pisachacharya aho vibhumnas charitam vidambanam. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Demigods like Brahma also follow the religious rites observed by him. He is the controller of the material energy which causes the creation of the material world. is great, and therefore his devilish characteristics are simply imitation. This is being told about Lord Shiva, that actually he's speaking to his wife about Lord Shiva and saying that she has to be careful that it's Lord Shiva's two time now. So you have to be careful. And he's actually explaining about Lord Shiva. In purport, Srila Prabhupada is mentioning Lord Shiva is the husband of Durga, the controller of material energy. See here, yeah. Durga is personified material energy, and Lord Shiva, being her husband, is the controller of the material energy. He is also the incarnation of the mode of ignorance and one of the three deities representing the Supreme Lord. The other two being Vishnu and Brahma. As his representative, Lord Shiva is identical with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is very great, and his renunciation of all material enjoyment is an ideal example of how one should be materially unattached. One should therefore follow in his footsteps and be unattached to matter, not imitate his uncommon acts like drinking poison. A lot of things to contemplate on. So, just to give you all a little background of where we are. So, what has happened is just the previous chapter was actually about Varahadev's incarnation. So, Maitreya Muni, like you all know, Maitreya and Vidura meet, and Maitreya is being asked by Vidura certain questions, and Maitreya is responding. So just before we go, let's take the blessings of the Pampara. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandjana Salakaya Chakshur Unmritam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namah Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Uttapadakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Deva Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhan Vitamscha Hare Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagapate Gopesha Gopinatanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavadeshwari Vishabhanusade Devi Pranamami Haripriya Vancha Kalpaturdasya Kripasinudeva Cha Patitanam Paramidyo Vaishnavibhyo Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Kaurvani Vicharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshitani Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishna Vidya Jagata Swami Namacharya Padaya Nitya. So, pretty interesting, the Canto 3. In fact, I was very fortunate last 1 month I've been hearing Canto 3. The first 4 chapters I was hearing for classes. It's a part of Bhakti Vaibhav, so we have been hearing this. So I was hearing from Bhakti Vigna Vinashina Maharaj, chapter, first 4 chapters. Currently my chapter 9 is going on. But just to give you all the input of how this starts up. So it very interestingly, Vidura starts, maybe we'll take 5 minutes to give you a background. It's like a movie start, and you need to know where the situation and storyline is, in case you all have not joined the previous classes. So Vidura is disrespected in the court of Hastinapur. Vidura leaves Hastinapur. He actually goes out on yatra. He doesn't go directly to the Lord. He goes and visits holy places, because he says that let me first get purified by visiting the holy places instead of visiting the Lord himself, because the Lord himself was also there. And just understand that the Lord also knew Vidura was very, very, very learned person, right? So Vidura goes, and Vidura, after almost going on yatra for 35 years, not for 1 year, 2 year, 1 week, 2 week, 35 years he was on yatra. And while during this yatra, he happens to meet Uddhava. And Uddhava then, he asks Uddhava what happened about Krishna. And Uddhava actually gives him the sad news of the departure of Lord Krishna, but reminds Vidura that don't you think yourself very frugal, because the Lord remembered you at the time of death. Can you just imagine that the Lord has to remember everyone, and the Lord specifically remembers Vidura at the time of death. So you can just imagine how glorious Vidura was. Which is what we call as Maryada Vyatikram. So Vidura actually asks Uddhava to give certain details, give him the knowledge. That was the humility of Vidura. It's not that Vidura didn't have the knowledge. So Vidura was knowledgeable. But whenever you see someone who is more knowledgeable than you, you need to take knowledge from him. You need to accept spiritual knowledge from him. So Vidura also asks from Uddhava. And Uddhava is also, it's like etiquette after etiquette. Uddhava then says that Uddhava is quite qualified to give the details. Uddhava, in fact, Uddhava stays back. One of the reasons is that people can see him and remember Krishna. He exactly looked like them. Right? So, but then Uddhava, in order to avoid Maryada Vyatikram, should not lose respect. He thinks that Vidura is senior to him, so he says, I cannot give you knowledge. But the same knowledge which Lord Krishna has given me, at that time Maitreya Muni happened to be there. Maitreya was not called, Maitreya just happened to be there, Maitreya has heard. So Maitreya has heard, so Maitreya Muni can give you, because he's senior. So listen it from him, and then Uddhava leaves. Of course, very nice, interesting talks wherein it says that how the rendition of the discussion which Krishna gave to Uddhava is little more higher than what he gave to Brahma. The details of which will again come later during Uddhav Gita. And this all is happening as discussion between Vidura and Maitreya, because Maitreya is also saying how he heard that. He says about how the creation of the universal form. He then says how Brahma manifests from Garbhodakshai Vishnu, and as soon as Brahma manifests, once he just after manifesting, he again sits down and he meditates. He meditates and then he creates the Kumaras, who the main reason for him to create the Kumaras was to beget progeny. But then it so happens that they didn't want to create progeny, so they leave. And Brahma is little perturbed. When things do not go the way you want, you get angry, you get worried, you get frustrated. When he's doing that, the Rudras appear from him. Same way we can think of ourselves. And because that is running in your mind, he says the Rudras, you create progeny. The Rudras start to create progeny, which is almost equivalent to them, and it almost becomes like the world will be devoured. So again, Brahma says, stop, stop, stop. So it's like a increase in your level of progress and process. So they stop. He says, you go and do penance. He sends the Rudras to penance. Then again thinks what he should do. Then he creates the sages. Even there he's not so happy. Then he creates Manu and Shatarupa. That Manu is the first Manu, Swayambhuva Manu. We are currently in the 7th Manu space, Vaivaswata Manu. He has come from Vivaswan lineage, so Vaivaswata Manu. So Swayambhuva Manu, as soon as he comes along with his wife Satarupa, he actually asks Brahma, what do we do? Brahma then says him 3 things: rule the kingdom nicely, take care of people, beget progeny. That's how he begets progeny. And the progeny where he creates. So while this all is happening, Manu then says that while this discussion is happening, earth is submerged. So Manu says to Brahma that you please go and pick up. Can you please help in picking up, getting earth out? So earth is basically submerged in the Garbhodak ocean. So submerged. So it says, okay, can you go and get back? And the Brahma is contemplating how to go and do that. While contemplating, from the nostril of Brahma, a thumb-sized creature come out, which suddenly grows. And that's how the chapter 13 was, on the appearance of Lord Varaha. But in that we have to understand that he speaks about, almost up till the verse 30, he speaks about one Varaha, the second Varaha, he speaks also 31. So Maitreya in fact combines about 2 Varahadevs, the Varahadev in Swayambhuva Manu's time, as well as the Varahadev in Chakshusa Manu's time. It looks like this Vidura and Maitreya, this discussion is now happening in the Vaivasvata Manu's time, but he's speaking about the others. While speaking, it's but obvious, like you combine when you're glorifying the Lord, so he just glorifies. So at different places I've heard about Shweta Varaha and Rakta Varaha. How while I was preparing for the class, I also happened to read about Shweta Varaha and Nila Varaha. They say that the second one was Nila Varaha. Nila, like you understand, is bluish, and the first one was Shweta. Shweta Varaha is the one who came out of the nostrils and removed from ocean with the tusk. The Lord behaves like a boar, smelling and then going and lifting out. And then Nila Varaha is the Varaha who fought with Hiranyaksha. And when this is happening, so Vidura, since it's a conversation, Vidura actually asks about, can you tell me a little bit more about why this fight happened? That's how the chapter 14 starts, I hope. So he said that you further give me further transcendental activities of the Lord, since I'm not feeling satisfied. So this, why in material world, when we are not satisfied, we say that we shouldn't be hankering and lamenting for material things, but then with regards to spiritual life, it is nice that we are not satisfied with getting more and more transcendental knowledge. And Vidura also very nicely says, I have heard by disciplic succession, Hiranyaksha. Hiranyaksha, he's calling the original demon, the first demon kind of say, original demon who was slain by the Varahadev itself. Please tell me something about it. And that's how it comes. So because he has to tell about Hiranyaksha slain by Varaha, that's why Maitreya is now discussing about how Hiranyaksha was born. So the next few chapters, you will actually learn about that. How, in fact, this chapter is about the conception of Hiranyaksha and why such a demon, the demon known as the original demon, came into the womb of Diti. He is explaining about that too. Maitreya Muni is explaining that to Vidura. In fact, Sukadeva is saying about this to Parikshit. Right? And when he's asking that I'm not satisfied by hearing the narration of the Lord, Maitreya says, inquiry made by you is befitting because you are hearing about the Supreme Personality of God, and just by hearing, you will be the source of liberation from chain of birth and death. And he quotes, he says that just by hearing this, the son of King Uttanapad Dhruva was enlightened regarding the personality of Godhead, and he went to the abode of Lord, placing his head over the head of death. So just imagine how glorious it is to hear about the Lord, that you can get over fear person, over death personified as well. Which more details about this King Uttanapad, one more son of Swayambhuva Manu, is described a little later. And then Maitreya also says that I'm saying you whatever I have heard, I'm saying you as I heard it when Brahma was speaking. See, Maitreya is also from a proper bona fide Brahmana. You have to understand that. Maitreya actually hears it from Parashara Muni. Parashara Muni heard it from, I think, one other Rishi, I forget his name, who heard it from the Kumaras. And Kumaras heard it from Sankarsha. So that's how Maitreya comes into place. So Maitreya also, anytime he quotes, that's the way a parampara quotes. Every time they quote from whom they heard, so that they are very specific. So he says that I heard about this. And he goes about to say that 13 daughters of Daksha, not 1, 2, 3, but 13 daughters of Daksha were married to Kashyapa, the son of Marichi. So, and we usually hear about two specific daughters of those 13. One is Diti and Aditi, but there are 11 more. We also know about their other sister, Sati. I think Sati was married to Lord Shiva. So in a way, Lord Shiva is the brother-in-law of Kashyapa. So actually Kashyapa remembers Shiva that way. Out here, first he starts up. So actually what happens is, Diti being, all the 13 sisters were very chaste with Kashyapa Muni. But Diti, seeing that her sisters were already blessed with babies, she also wanted a child. And she goes and she begs her husband for a union to have a child. And this happens at a time when Kashyapa has completed his yagya and is actually sitting in trance, thinking about the Lord. And Diti is very beautiful. Diti says that she asks for, she says that I'm very distressed, please make me happy. And he also reminds that how all of them have been very loyal to her. And says that I'm in distress, so please help me. Knowing this, Kashyapa Muni, one should understand that Kashyapa was very, very learned. there was no doubt of his not being learned. Kashyapa was very learned, and Kashyapa was in fact, Kashyapa was actually first prize to satisfy Diti with words. A good technique. So he tries that, and in fact glorifies. It's here that actually calls out Diti as his better half. In fact, Prabhupada calls out, and also says how a wife is a fort, so that by taking shelter of the wife, one can conquer the senses because they help. So, as Grihasthas, we understand how important the Krishna conscious spouse is, who helps us in serving the Lord, in serving Guru Gauranga. So he also goes upon to say that he says we will never be able to repay what you have done. So he basically tries to wean her off that. So, but he says that you just wait for a muhurta, because this is not a good time. Others may reproach me. It's very inauspicious time. It was the evening time, and this is really not good. In fact, you will find, though we will digress, but you will find exactly the opposite of this in later cantos when Aditi comes and Aditi wants a child. It's a total difference. And that's how you should try to understand. See, both Diti and Aditi, they grew up in the same household, had the same parents. In fact, such is the fate that they have the same husband. Um, but like we say, the fingers of a hand are different in size. You cannot do anything to that. We just live with it. So even after the same upbringing, same culture, same everything, both represent different mentality. While in Aditi's case, you get Upendra, who later on becomes Vamana Dev. She does one other sacrifice, which is advice for the devotees also. Here we are reading this part of the Srimad Bhagavatam to understand what we should not do. There are two important concepts. Always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. That means you have to do positive and you have to not do the negative. So this is a part which says about not do the negative. This part is not do the negative. That's how you should see that. So he actually says about Lord Shiva. Kashyapa says, and Kashyapa says that Lord Shiva is, at this time, he moves about. So this time is very inauspicious. And so let's not do that. So he says that, in fact, just before this verse, he says, though Lord Shiva is our brother-in-law, because like I said, Lord Shiva's one is a little bit, can I just ask to mute? Just let me just see, someone's sound is a little. Okay, so says that Lord Shiva actually does not regard no one as his relative. Yet there is no one who is not connected with him. So So he says that let's not do anything, otherwise uh, what do you say, Lord Shiva will be disturbed, and that will lead to lot of repercussions. And in fact, he says, although no one in the material world is equal to or greater than Lord Shiva, and although his unimpeachable character is followed by great souls to dismantle the mass of nescience, he nevertheless remains as if a devil to give salvation to all the devotees of the Lord. So actually, Lord Shiva's qualities are glorified by Kashyapa Muni, because he's saying that, just imagine, so like you all have many of you are preachers, as I see this, you all are preaching in different area. Guru Agya, Guru Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada had the Guru Agya of going to the West and preaching. This is his spiritual master, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada gave him, and that you know English, you go and preach in the West. Similarly, Srila Prabhupada sent Brahmananda Swami at the time to Africa to preach. And Brahman said, what do I have? He said, I came with 40 rupees, you can also go with that. And Brahmananda followed suit, and he was able to establish. Similarly, he sent, he gave Mayapur as the Guru Agya for Jayapataka Swami and Achyutananda Swami. Jayapataka Swami has taken it forward. So everyone has a Guru Agya, a place of where you have to preach and make them Krishna consciously. Each one of you are given a Guru Agya, an instruction by your superiors to preach at a particular place. And because of the blessings of the spiritual master or his representatives, one becomes successful in preaching the glories of Krishna at that particular point of time, and glorifying Guru and Govinda. So similarly, what is the place where Lord Shiva preaches? Lord Shiva's preaching is the most difficult one. Lord Shiva preaches to the people who are not even, who are in no way Krishna conscious. They're in the mode of ignorance. But he doesn't want to leave them off. He's such compassionate, hence he's Ashutosh. So he preaches to them, to the ghosts, goblins, to all of them. He some way tricks them, And then it is mentioned, I was hearing from a god sister of mine. She happens to be a Lingayat. Lingayats are worshippers of Lord Shiva in Karnataka, if you know. So she was saying that she went and she kept praying to Lord Shiva, and because she prayed to Lord Shiva properly, that's why she became a devotee of Lord Krishna. So similarly, Shiva has taken the ownership of preaching to the ghosts, goblins, etc. That's his Guru Agya kind of thing. Okay. So, but people don't know him, and sometimes they laugh at him. That's what in the previous verse it was said, unfortunate foolish people not knowing laugh at him. Such foolish person engage in maintaining the body with dresses, ornaments, garlands, and ointments. Lord Shiva is such that he does not even take care of his body, but he's always in Hari Kirtan. He's always Vaishnavanam Yatha Sambhu, the greatest of the Vaishnava. People sometimes get caught up to the extent that Daksha Prajapati also got caught up. You know that big story, right? How Daksha got, and then Daksha committed the offense for which he was punished. But continuing that is where we come to the verse which we just read. In fact, we are just coming to the verse, but I just wanted to say how he's glorifying Lord Shiva. And he's also speaking about the impartiality of Lord Shiva. Kashyapa is speaking out, saying, Kashyapa is not going to think that you are his sister-in-law. That's why he will not punish you. Nothing of that kind. He has taken up a role and a position. He will perform that role to perfection, because that is what Lord Shiva is all about. This is something which we as Krishna conscious people should understand. Like I know, I've heard about that. Srila Prabhupada was almost in his late 70s, and Bhavatarini, we read as Pishima. Pishima is Srila Prabhupada's sister. She wanted to talk to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada said, he could have, it was very, what do you think about that? He could have just spoken to his sister, but he said, no, I'm a sannyasi. I shouldn't be talking to a woman alone, so my servants can stay. So one or two other things stayed. So they would. A leader should always be, how do I say? You should not suspect that. Lord Shiva was that. Lord Shiva was. He was equally. Certain times when people couldn't understand him, they've actually committed issues. Like we know about Chitraketu and what happened to him later, Vritrasura, which we read about. So continuing that, Kashyapa is actually saying that demigods like Brahma also follow the religious rites observed by him. And he's saying that even Brahma is following certain things, what he's saying. And then he's saying that Shiva is Durgaisha. Shiva is the controller of the material energy. Durga is material energy. So Lord Shiva controls Durga. And he's the incarnation of the mode of ignorance. As his representative, Lord Shiva is identical with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I've referred this quite a number of times. Maybe I'll repeat it again. I happened to be on one Navadvip Mandal Parikram. Somehow was never fortunate to go back again. But one Navadvip Mandal Parikram, maybe 2006 or 7, I'm speaking about. And we happened to, in Navadvip Mandal Parikram, you go about different places. So we were moving, and at one point of time, Navayogendra Swami Maharaj is a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. I think it was in Harihara Kshetra. Before that, while giving a class, he had said, he said, Hiranyakashipu ki, and that was in a previous place, and when people said Jai, so he said, are you listening to the class or not? You're saying Jai for everything. He scolded them. So the next place, when it came to Harihar Kshetra, he was saying the pastime again, and he said, Lord Shiva ki, Shiva Sambhu ki. And people were really rattled, the devotees, they didn't know whether to say Jai or not Jai. Just imagine what will our condition be. So they didn't say, because they didn't say Maharaj again gave a class that how can you not glorify Lord Shiva? So here also it said, as is represented, Lord Shiva is identical with the Supreme Personality of God. Of course, sometimes people come and say, but about the 10 offenses to the holy name. But if we read that, it says to consider the names of demigods like Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma to be equal to or independent of the name of Lord Vishnu. So there is a difference between the power of that. But Lord Shiva, being a Guna avatar, can be considered identical in certain aspects. And what is mentioned here is his renunciation of all material enjoyment is an ideal example of how one should be materially unattached. Understand that? So we should take up whatever is the best essence of out of these things. Certain things we cannot imitate. There are certain sadhus who actually spoke ganja. And they say that because Lord Shiva had that. But then Lord Shiva drank poison, and you drink poison, you cannot. So rather you should be, and how one is materially unattached. Very difficult. Superfluously or superficially we can show ourselves to be unattached. But when it comes to our things and something happens to that, we feel as if a portion of our body is taken away. That's where we have to learn from Lord Shiva. He has the entire universe to him because the material universe is under the control of Durga, and Durga happens to be his wife. He's not attached to anything at all. Not at all. In fact, he's totally focused on his preaching area. And he wants to ensure that he gives them mercy, and some way or the other ensures that they will be taken care and go back home, back to garden. And if you find someone is progressing in that, like you know about those brothers, which were those brothers? Anyone remembers? Whom he gave knowledge? Yes, you get 108 marks. Yes, to the Prachetas. Prachetas, the instructions of Lord Shiva to Prachetas are like one of the best instructions. He says them how we should do. Those instructions to Prachetas are in fact what every individual of an organization should listen to. It is so valid even for a material organization, what to speak of spiritual organization like ISKCON. In fact, he says how they should cooperatively serve, and serve whom? They should serve the Supreme Personality of God. And he's very happy by that. And he in fact gives them the mantra by which they should worship Lord Krishna. That's what Lord Shiva is. And it's not that he was staying attached out there, just like any wonderful spiritual master. He's never attached to any particular thing. He glorifies his Lord and he moves up. And that's why we also have a Sampradaya, Vaishnava Sampradaya based on Lord Shiva, right? So we should take it up. And as Grihasthas, this becomes very, very important. What to speak about brahmacharis. Of course, of the four ashramas which we have, brahmacharya, the grihastha, the sannyasa, and vanaprastha. So if we think about this, the brahmachari, the sannyasi, and the vanaprastha, all three are in forest, ideally. Or rather, they are not supposed to have anything of their own. They are supposed to be in Aranya. They are supposed to be in the forest, ensuring that they stay minimal, thinking about themselves, very minimal thinking of themselves, so rather most time thinking about the Supreme Personality of Godhead and less bodily satisfaction and others. The Grihasthas are given a little leeway, a little bit within the fort. That's why Kashyapa was glorifying his better half, his fort. So in that, when the Grihasthas are given that, Grihasthas have to be totally conscious about how they should be unattached. Rather, they should think how they can attach everything they have in their possession to the Supreme Personality of God. For us, Gaudiya Vaishnavas, for us, Yukta Vairagya is the most important. We should ensure that everything we have can be some way or the other linked with the Supreme Personality of God. That is spiritually attached. And Lord Shiva shows that ideal example of how he is materially unattached and spiritually attached. You understand that? That's very important. That's where we should follow in his footsteps and be attached to matter. And be unattached to matter, not imitate his uncommon acts. Rather, we should be totally thinking of how we can increase our time in thinking about Krishna, more and more about Krishna. And because he does that, everyone else follows him on that particular aspect. After this, the next verse, Srila Prabhupada Maitreya speaks. Maitreya vacha saivam samvidete bhartva manmatano mathinendriyaha jagraha vaso brahmarshet vishaliva gatatrapa. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Jai. Maitra said Diti was thus informed by her husband, but she was pressed by Cupid for sexual satisfaction. She caught hold of the clothing of the great Brahmana sage, just like a shameless public prostitute. Purport. The difference between a married wife and a public prostitute is that one is restrained in sex life by the rules and regulations of the scriptures, whereas the other is unrestricted in sex life and is conducted solely by the strong sex urge. Although very enlightened, Kashyapa, the great sage, became a victim of his prostitute wife. Such is a strong force of material energy. So the discussion continues, and he says that how Kashyapa knew that it was wrong, but Kashyapa resigned to the fact that he's being overcome. In fact, in the subsequent verses and the purpose, Srila Prabhupada will go on to glorify Haridas Thakur vis-a-vis Kashyapa and says that how someone in Krishna consciousness, it may be a little easier to get over this, rather it is convenient to get over this than someone even with the highest amount of knowledge like Kashyapa. And also, like I was saying, this chapter is on what we should not do. And later some chapters on what we should do. So Diti understands. It's not that Diti does not understand. It's after performing the act, Diti understands. Diti comes and asks for forgiveness. And when Diti asks for forgiveness, then Kashyapa then chastises. Kashyapa then says, but it's not that Kashyapa leaves Diti. No, that is something which is not advised in our scriptures. There may be transgressions, there may be many things, but we don't advise that. So because he's also a party to the crime, though he says that this is wrong, but he's also a party to it. So he then says, but he gives because of her feeling bad about it. She's also feeling bad that Lord Shiva may kill their sons in the womb, who are produced after the union. So Kashyapa says that no, they are not going to be killed. Shiva will be more accommodative, but they will create problems for the entire world. But however, he ends it with a good note wherein he says that your grandson will be the greatest devotee of all time. So that is the lining, the silver lining. So like while we brood over the birth or the appearance of Hiranyakashipu, but if Hiranyakashipu is not there, how is Prahlad coming? so he says that okay, Prahlad will come, who will give us the better things, who will tell us how to perform devotional service, which is there. So that is where it comes across. So a couple of things which we should take home in this kind of in this thing. We try to understand what we should not do. We should understand how we should respect each one, how we should respect our Lord Shiva. We also should know the rules and regulations of the scriptures, so that our life is revolving around that. And because the laws of nature, like whatever Kashyapa is saying, like Shiva is totally, what do you say, he doesn't take care of the relate. It is not that he will give some leeway to his relation. Similarly, the laws of nature doesn't see anyone. The laws of nature is going to ensure that everyone gets back. You get back whatever you have performed. So and in order to know the laws of nature, we have to read the scriptures properly. We have to understand what we should do and what we should not do, and accordingly follow that. When we follow that, there will be well-being and goodness in all the entire society. And should not only keep it to ourselves, but we should try to disseminate this knowledge across the globe to the extent possible within our own constraints, so that everyone is benefited by such wonderful knowledge. So I always come about, so like Grihasthas should know how they should behave. Grihasthas should respect each other's partners. Each partner should understand how the other one is and help each other. That's what we understand from this chapter. We should respect Lord Shiva. We should go about glorifying this to everyone. Means glorifying the Lord's pastimes, and we should spread the knowledge of Krishna all across the globe. And that's what is very pleasing to Srila Prabhupada. It's very pleasing to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu has very specifically said that Srimad Bhagavatam should be read every day. In fact, Mahaprabhu, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, was every day sitting down and reading hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. It is mentioned that he used to walk down. When you go to Puri, you should actually go down to Tota Gopinath. In Tota Gopinath, Tota means garden. So it's usually a lot of mango trees. So he used to sit down there in Tota, and Gadadhar used to read Srimad Bhagavatam. And when Gadadhar used to read Srimad Bhagavatam, Mahaprabhu used to listen. Now what knowledge is there which the Lord doesn't know? But the Lord repeatedly heard the scriptures. Repeatedly, in fact, he keeps hearing a lot of time through us. Last times is what I happen to remember. He kept hearing and hearing and hearing. See, the Lord himself who could give so many different explanations of the Atma Rama verse. So do you think it was something he had to hear so many times? He heard it so that he showed us. Similarly, Srila Prabhupada, who has written all of these, right? Srila Prabhupada kept hearing and reading the Krishna book. So the more you hear, the more the dirt and impurities come out of our heart. The more we remember what the rules and regulations are, the more we remember how we should behave. And when we start behaving that way, when we start doing the achar that way, then prachar will also happen. See, preaching is not something just superficially saying, but nowadays the world leaders say, keep my personal life separate from my professional life. Don't speak about that. But we don't believe that in the scriptures. We say that we still want Maryada Purushottam, Sri Ram's Rajya, because he walked his talk. So the preachers should walk their talk. And to walk their talk, they should know what talk is. And if you need to know the talk, you need to read all of these to understand what all should be done and what all should not be done. With that, we will stop here. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. In case any one of you would like to correct me or add something, add some points or any comments, I would love to hear that from you. Any questions? You all, it will all.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you for summarizing the full episode, full chapter. Thank you. It was a very good recap. Prabhuji, I had a question. Like you said that there is no escaping this laws of material nature. But does like Krishna, some like forgave us for something, like sometime, like is that also possible?
Yeah, that is also a law, right? So the law is like you have, you have the law in this country, in our country also, you have the law of amnesty, Amnesty means the president or the president can change if someone is under a life sentence, the president has the power to um, change the death sentence to life imprisonment or to release him, right? So that is also a law that he
Okay,
can
okay.
do that, right?
Mhm.
Similarly, the laws of nature also says that the Supreme Personality of Godhead or the service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I mean, devotion to Krishna, even devotional service can also help us get over these things. Yes, that is there. He can always relieve you. That's why Prabhupada said that, you see, your life is governed by this lines. I don't know how many of you can read the lines. So if you will see my lines, I have a lot of lines on my hand. But Prabhupada says that if someone is chanting the name of Lord, and in fact, while chanting, if they are clapping and chanting, he says the lines change. And my spiritual master, Japadik Maharaj, was explaining in a class that, like when you clap in a place, when you clap in a crop field, when you clap, the crows fly away. Similarly, when you clap by chanting the name of Lord Hari, your bad karma flies away. It goes away. So yes, and what is bad karma? Those are the actions which we have done, for which we are supposed to get a lot of reactions. But then, so that will be done. But then I would also take the opportunity to remind you that in the 10 offenses, there is also one offense which says to, to continue committing sinful activities on the strength of the holy name of the Lord. That means holy name of the Lord has removed my sins now. So let me once again commit something like an elephant. That is not permissible. That then becomes court-martial.
No, Prabhu. Only the past ones which we may have,
Yes, yes, yes.
which unknowingly or by
Yes,
something.
even if knowingly also, when you read so many things, so many places, it says even if someone has knowingly even committed Brahma Hatya, even if someone has committed so many heinous crimes, you can be relieved by the holy name, like Jagai Madhai. Saint Maharaj was saying that there was no such crime which they had not committed. All the kinds of nuisance. But Jagai and Madhai became the biggest saints in the Vaishnava Parampara just by chanting the holy name of the Lord. So that means holy name has that. That's the law. So that's also a law of nature. Very nice question, Mataji. Thank you for asking that. I hope
Thank
that.
you, Prabhuji, for answering. Thank you. Hare
Thank you.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Any other questions or comments? Raji Prabhu, Harini Mataji, Premamai Mataji, Shanti Govind Prabhu, Shanti Mataji, Sudamanath Prabhu, Sri Hari Prabhu, Sumit Prabhu, Vijayasri Mataji.
Krishna Prabhu, Pandot Pranam.
Pandot Pranam, Shanti Prabhu.
It was a nice revision today, Prabhu, all the earlier chapters.
Hare
Nice
Krishna.
reminder for all of us. The end of the class. Wonderful.
Thank you, Shanti Govinda, for your blessings. Okay, if nothing else, we shall. Hey, Haribol, Sumit Prabhu, I can see you. Thank you. So, okay, we shall stop here. Vanchukalpata Vyastra Kripa Sindhubhyo Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namo. Antikoti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai, Samaveti Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna, Hare Krishna
Hare
Mataji.
Krishna Prabhu.
Thank you so
Hare
much, Prabhuji. Dandavat pranam.
Dandavat Pranam Mataji. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. With all of your permission, let me just end the class.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Harival Prabhu, Devatinandan Prabhu, thank you for the wonderful service you do.
Thank
Hare
you to you.
Krishna.
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna. Hare Krishna Prabhu.